Hey everyone, welcome back to yet another video. If you're new to this channel, my name is Jason. This week is week 2 of the Pandas Zero to Hero video series, a video series where I teach you simple and effective ways of using pandas in your data analysis work. So last week we looked at how we can import a dataset into our Jupyter notebook, as well as create our own data frame using pandas. This week we're going to learn how we can select data using the loc and iloc function. Again, you can find this notebook on my GitHub. I'll put a link in the video description. On there, you also find the materials for next week as well as the week after. But what we're going to focus on today is Pandas tutorial 02. I'm trying my best to keep these sort of videos under 15 minutes. So without wasting any more time, let's just jump right into it. So we're going to import pandas as usual. And the data we're going to use in this week's tutorial is the same as last week. So it's going to be the Titanic dataset. I've put a link on my notebook which will bring you to the Kaggle website. And that is where you'll download the data. So I went on ahead to assign my data as the variable name data, and these are the first 5 rows of that data frame. So how do we select a series or column in a data frame? There are 2 ways we can do it. The first way is called the dot method, and the way we do that is we have to first specify the name of our data frame, followed by a dot, followed by the name of our column. Alternatively, we can use method 2, and that is almost the same thing. So the name of our data frame, followed by an open square bracket, inverted comma, the name of our column, inverted comma, close square bracket. So what's the difference between these 2 methods? On a high level, they do the exact same thing, except method 2 is more robust. And what I mean by that is it can handle more cases. I'll demonstrate this in an example later, but first let's just look at how we can select the name column from our data frame. So using the dot method, the name of our data frame is data, followed by a dot, followed by the name column. Alternatively, we can use method 2, so pandas should return the same results. So to demonstrate what I mean by method 2 is more robust, I went on ahead to rename the passenger ID by adding a space in between the word passenger and ID. So notice how the passenger ID now has a space in between the 2 words. So if we use method 2, pandas will work just fine. But if we try to use method 1, also known as the dot method, pandas will actually return a syntax error. Personally, I like to use method 2 more, simply because it can handle all the different cases. But if for some reason, if you prefer to use method 1, feel free, but just bear in mind that it does have this limitation. So we're going to move on to index-based selection, also known as iloc. So iloc takes in 2 arguments. The first argument is the position of the row. The second argument is the position of the column. Because Python has a starting index of 0, say we want the first row, we actually have to use the number 0. The second row, we have to use the number 1. The third row, we have to use the number 2, and so on. So let's say we want the first row and we want all the columns. The way we do that is we have to first specify the name of our data frame called data, followed by a dot, followed by iloc, followed by the first row. So first row is the number 0, and we want all the columns. And the way we select all the columns is via the semicolon symbol. So this should show us the first row. So if we scroll up to check what our original data looks like, so we have passenger ID of 1, survive 0, P class 3, and the name Owen Harris. So that should correspond to what we have here. So that is the first row of our data frame. So what if we want the name column, which is the 4th column in our data frame, and we want all the rows? The way we do that is dot iloc, and because we want all the rows, we have to use semicolon in the first argument, and we want the index 3, which is the 4th column. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, that should return the name column. And so this is what we have. Suppose we want to select a range of values, we have to first specify the starting number of that range and the ending number of that range. But bear in mind that iloc includes the first number but excludes the last number. And what I mean by that is, say for example, in this case, we have 1 semicolon 3. iloc will actually interpret this as 1, 2, and it'll exclude 3. So it'll return the second and third row of that data frame. Alternatively, we can also pass in a list or a series to iloc. So in this case, we want the first row, we want the second row, and we want the third row, and we want all the columns. We can also go from the bottom of that data frame, and the way we do that is by adding a negative. And these are the last 5 rows of that data frame. So that should correspond to the function tail. Now we're going to move on to label-based selection, also known as loc. So loc is very similar to iloc, except you have to specify the actual name of the column. It also takes in two arguments, the row position and the column position. Say we want the first row of the name column. The way we do that is we have to pass in 0 as our first argument. So we want the first row. And for the second argument, we have to explicitly specify the name of the column that we're after. So if we want the name column, we have to type in name. And this returns the name of our first row. Different to iloc, if you want to select a range of values, loc includes both the start as well as the end of that range. For example, if you want the first 5 rows using loc, we have to specify going from 0 to 4, meaning loc will interpret the index 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 rows. And so these are the first 5 rows of the name, sex, and age column. So in this last section of the notebook, we're going to learn about conditional selection. So how can we select rows that satisfy certain conditions? And we're going to accomplish this task via the loc function. So say we want to select the rows with age 50. So using the loc function, in the row argument, we have to tell loc that we want to select age that has the value of 50 and show me all the columns. So what if we want to add an additional condition? What if we want to select passengers that are age 50 and are females? The way we do that is as so. So this is our first condition, age equals to 50. And we're going to use this symbol, the ampersand symbol, followed by the second condition. So that will form our row argument. And again, we want all the columns. So notice how this data frame is actually a subset of this data frame above. We can also use an OR function. So OR is different in such a way that if a row satisfies either one of these conditions, it will exist in our data frame. So in this example, if we want the rows with age 50 all have a fare greater than or equal to 200, we have to use this symbol, and this should show us the rows that satisfy either one of these two. So say we take this first row as an example. This first row doesn't have age 50, but because it has a fare greater than 250, it has shown up in our data frame. We can also use the isNull function, which will show all the null values in a column. This is what we put in as the row argument, and we want all the columns. So the isNull function returns the rows that have null values in a particular column. The exact opposite of that is something called an isIn function. So say if we want to select all the rows that have embark equals to C or Q, the way we do that using isIn is as so. So using the loc function, in the rows argument, we want the embark values that are in C and Q, and show me all the columns. This is the same if we had just used the OR statement, but obviously the isIn is a lot more convenient and it's a lot quicker as well, simply because we can put in whatever that we want within the isIn argument. Whereas with the OR function, we have to write out the individual conditions, so it's a lot more time consuming. Alright, and that brings us to the end of this week's tutorial. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you gained something out of it, I would greatly appreciate if you could drop a like, as well as subscribe to my channel, because in the next few weeks I'll be releasing similar content like that. I would also highly encourage you guys to head onto my GitHub and have a look at the notebook yourself, as well as apply the skills that you've gained along the way in your own data science project. Because only by applying, that's when you'll take your learning as well as your skills of using Pandas to the very next level. With that being said, take care, keep learning, and I'll see you in my next week's tutorial.
1, 2, 3, 4. Started off right, I can see it in your eyes, and I know that you want it. What's been on your mind? There's no reason we should hide. Tell me something I ain't heard before.